Hello, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Douglas Johnson, and I am a yoga teacher at the advanced 500-hour level. I'm an ordained minister, musician, and kirtan artist. And today I want to talk a little bit about happiness. Before I do that though, I want to thank the community that make these talks possible, and those are my patrons over on Patreon. So if you'd like to become a part of that community, check out the links below. You can also tip me one time or help out by shopping from the merch links at the beginning and end of the video. If you're on YouTube, you can help out by liking, subscribing, and sharing. So happiness, isn't that what we want as human beings? Some people might think that happiness is elusive, or it's not possible, or that our minds or egos or greed makes it so that we can't be happy for any extended period of time. I'll say that this isn't really my experience, and I don't think that happiness is as elusive as we might think if we approach it in the right way. So today I want to share 5 things that I've learned that I think are fundamental to happiness. That, in other words, if you don't have these 5 things kind of handled or checked off, then you might find that no matter how much you pursue happiness, it's elusive because you're going about it the wrong way. And I actually think most of humanity is doing this. Most of humanity, well, maybe not most of humanity, but in my culture, most people think that happiness is about getting certain things, whether that's a house or a boat or a successful business or a loving partner. It's really framed in the wrong way. So basically, I think happiness is a function of health. So if we are healthy, that includes mental and emotional well-being, if you will. So we could call happiness. So these for me are very much interlinked. They aren't really independent of one another. So what are the 5 things that I have identified that I feel are really important for health and well-being? Well, one of them is movement. I'm moving right now as I talk to you, and that's not a coincidence. I like to film my talks while I'm out on a walk. That way I can do 2 things at once that I enjoy, which is sharing what I've learned and also getting outdoors. So this is one way that I keep movement in my life. But I'm also a yoga teacher, so every day when I go to work, I have to move at least some in order to teach. And then at home, I also do practices on my own, yoga practices, stretching, and things like that. So movement, exercise, very, very important. Not really optional from my perspective if you want health and happiness. So if you're struggling with your health, your happiness, your well-being, and you're not already moving regularly, often enough, long enough, then this is a place to explore. And you can start very simple with 30 minutes of walking every day. Then you can start doing interval walking for 30 minutes. And then you can start extending those walks. But even 30 minutes of walking daily will be a good start in terms of movement. You can add in yoga, weightlifting, all kinds of other things that you can do. So movement or exercise, absolutely essential. Another essential is proper diet. Now, it's funny because people approach diet almost religiously. Like, people will get on a diet, they will see changes, and then they will just insist that this is the diet that everybody should be on, and if everyone was on this diet, it would cure all of their problems. It's just not true. So Dr. Peter Attia, who wrote the book Outlived, which I recommend, or Outlive, I recommend it. He talks about how he was a big fan of the ketogenic diet, and he would recommend it to all his patients. And since he's a doctor, he would do testing to see if the results were what he expected. Interestingly, some of his patients would get better on a ketogenic diet, but some of them wouldn't, and some of them would actually get worse. So what's going on there? Is the ketogenic diet good or bad? It depends. Like so many things in life, we just want one simple answer. But the truth is, it depends, okay? We're individuals, and one size just does not fit all, as much as that would be convenient for us. And we would like that to be that way so that we could just recommend one diet for everybody. It just doesn't work that way. So what that means is you are responsible for figuring out the right diet for you. Okay, you can do this in combination with a nutritionist or a doctor, but there are some simple ideas that you can implement. And one of them is refined foods are generally not good foods. And that includes health foods at the grocery store, you know, protein bars, things like this. Generally, these are not the best source of food. Whole foods, foods that would have shown up in nature, more or less, are the foods that we should try and consume. So plant and animal products that have a minimal amount of processing. Generally, that is some combination thereof is likely to be the right diet for you. But the exact combination, that's going to be, again, very, very personal. So you will have to figure that out on your own. So we have movement, we have diet. These are things I've spoken about before. Another thing is sleep. So a lot of people struggle with sleep. I have too. I've done a lot of work over the past year to try and improve the quality of my sleep. So the word I like to use is sleep hygiene. So this includes things like your bedtime ritual, your wake up ritual, you know, what kind of supplements are you taking or not taking? When are you taking them? How much is your caffeine intake, right? How much coffee are you taking in? When do you stop drinking coffee? Alcohol consumption before bed, food consumption before bed, lights, LED lights in your room, like on devices that just blink or they stay on. What kind of lighting do you have in your house and your bedroom at night before bed? All of these things are affecting your biorhythms. Again, even when you wake up, turning on a specific light that mimics sunlight first thing in the morning to tell your biology that it's time to wake up, this can actually help you fall back asleep. Supplements like saffron and magnesium, tart cherry, these can help with sleep and sleeping through the night. So there's a lot to it. Again, I can't put it all into this one talk, but these are things that you can learn about and research on your own. And again, everyone's going to be a little different based on your age and what are you doing, right? If you're turning on a bunch of bright lights and watching a movie right before bed, then that might really, really interfere with your sleeping, okay? And then you'll be like, well, you know, I'm doing these supplements, I'm doing this other stuff, and it doesn't seem to be working. Well, it could be because you're at cross purposes. So I found the more that I line everything up for a successful night's sleep, the better the quality of my sleep is. And again, none of this stuff I'm sharing with you is really questioned through science. All the science says that these things are things that will lead to health. And like I said, health and happiness are they're really together. So if you can take the time to really make yourself healthy, I think you'll find that a sense of well-being, what we might call happiness, is the side effect of that, kind of the byproduct of that. So we have movement, we have sleep, we have diet. What else is there? Stress management. So this is a big one. These days, This is often falls under the category of what many people call mindfulness or mindfulness practices. But it's a two-factor thing from my perspective. One is, how much stress are you creating in your life? Can you minimize those sources of stress? And then two, how are you dealing with the stress that comes in? So if you work a really stressful job, then you might have to spend more time, energy, and money on relieving yourself of that stress. On the other hand, if you create a life that is pretty stress-free, I mean, I don't think any human life is completely free of stress, but if you can find ways to minimize the stress in your life, work a job that agrees with your constitution, marry someone who is pleasant and agreeable, right? Try and work someplace where there are people you get along with. All these things are going to minimize the amount of stress you're introducing to your nervous system, and then it'll be much easier to handle it. I know this is impossible for everybody, so again, I think the more stressful your job, then the more you will need to find ways of managing your stress. So meditation, yoga, going on yoga retreats instead of a standard vacation, all of these things can be very, very helpful. And there's just more and more information, but this is another aspect, managing our stress. And then finally, the fifth thing is socialization, getting out with friends. And this extends beyond just your family. I think in our culture, once you find a partner, very often you cut off many of your friends, intentionally or unintentionally. You just end up not going for boys' night or girls' night. You end up seeing every movie with your partner. And then when you have kids, it just becomes you and the family. Every vacation is going with the same people, and you end up not socializing as much. Well, more and more information is coming out how important it is to stay social. And I think right now the studies seem to show that women are better at keeping contact with their friends than men are. Very often when men get into a romantic relationship, again, they just sort of drop everything and they let their partner take care of all the socialization stuff. So she's making the plans, she's, coordinating everything, organizing everything. But again, this may not actually be healthy. So having community, you might find this at a yoga studio, at a church. You might find it going out and having common interests with people. If you play music, maybe playing in a band. If you like sports, playing that sport in a non-professional league or something. There are lots of ways, but I think this is a very important and often overlooked thing. And then if there were one more, kind of a bonus sixth, I would say it's having some form of spiritual connection, whatever form that might take. So I don't think you need religion. I don't even think you need formal spirituality, so to speak. This goes somewhat with the mindfulness piece, but it's a little bit different. Just finding experiences that feel sacred to you, that maybe put you in a sense of awe. And so again, this could be playing music with friends. When I was younger and I didn't really identify with the term religious or spiritual, I sought out musical experiences because for me, these were sort of transcendent experiences. These were experiences that stood above my sort of day-to-day experiences. And so I would encourage everyone to seek that out and have that. And again, that's kind of a bonus sixth thing. So these 5 or 6 things are things that I think are absolutely essential. They're not really up for debate if we're going to have a consistent happiness in our lives. A lot of us think that happiness is about getting what we want, but I can tell you, I have gotten what I've wanted before, and when I got it, I was not fulfilled or happy. I've also had the opposite experience where nothing seems to be going my way, and yet I find myself quite happy and content and fulfilled in life. And so what I've learned and what I want to share here with you is, if you're fixated on one thing or trying to fix your life to have it look a certain way, that actually may be a great waste of energy. And you might find that even if you arrange everything, all your ducks are in a row, everything's how you want it, you might have a moment or two of satisfaction. I mean, it can feel good, like, yes, I did it. But then you might find that the way you thought you would feel isn't the way you actually feel. And again, very often we get all our ducks in a row by adding a lot of stress to our lives, right? By trying to push circumstances and people and places into certain results, because we think the results will lead to my happiness. But again, this isn't what I've experienced, and this isn't what many of the wisdom traditions teach us. It isn't so much about particular circumstances, but other factors. And for me, the way I'm framing them in this particular talk is happiness. So again, decoupling the idea that getting what I want is what leads to happiness. It may for a moment, but it's not a lasting happiness. And very often, trying to get what you want creates so much stress and distortions to your health that very often you might find, yes, I built a multi-million-dollar business, and yet my health and my happiness have suffered. So what was the point of building the business if you didn't get what you really wanted, right? Which was the happiness and the health. So in a way, this is a real blessing because it's a shortcut. I say, make yourself happy first, and then do what you like. If when you're happy, when you're fulfilled, you're like, hey, I want to build a business, then go for it. But be mindful of your health in the way, right? Don't build a business by sacrificing your health and happiness, because then you'll find that, yes, you build a business, but you've lost your health and happiness, which are much more important. If you become happy and healthy and then you decide, I want to build a business, and you can maintain your health and happiness while doing that, I think you'll find it's very, very satisfying. And this goes for anything, finding a partner or whatever it might be, buying a house, any kind of external thing. But happiness itself, contentment maybe is a better word, a sense of well-being, this I think has much more to do with just these basic tenets of health. Am I sleeping right? Am I moving enough? Am I eating right? Am I dealing with my stress? And again, we can throw in there, well, we have the socialization. Do I have friends and maybe family that I feel close to, I feel supported by, that I see regularly? And then again, finally, maybe some kind of a spiritual community or a spiritual practice, something that puts you into perhaps a flow state or a state where you feel a little bit a sense of awe and transcendence. So as always, I'd love to hear from you about your experience. Are you happy? Do you feel fulfilled and content? This is really a very important thing in my life, and when I'm not feeling content and happy, I know that something is missing, that very often I'm not thinking in the right way. Byron Katie might say, I'm believing a thought that is not ultimately true. All right, everyone, I hope this was helpful as usual. Until next time, namaste. Have a beautiful, beautiful day.